Hello. Thank you so much for coming today. My name is Stephen Goodhue. I'm the music director at FBI Radio. And today we're going to be looking at success and the idea of success. It strikes me that today there are so many different ways to be successful. Some do well in some areas, some fall short in other areas. And, I think it's really important for an artist to be working out, I guess, where success lies for them, what it is. And it can be a little bit of a philosophical discussion. So for the purposes of today's discussion, we're going to look at it a little bit more from an industry standpoint. Given, we're all here at BIGSOUND, we're all looking to kind of play the game a little bit. So we're going to be looking, very much from, I guess, a commercial standpoint. So anyway, allow me to introduce our panelists today. So we have Andrew Stone. Andrew Stone is the head of Chug Music, the record label and management division of Chug Entertainment. Chug Music is the management and Australian record label of Shepherd, Deep Sea Arcade, Hey Geronimo, the Griswolds, Lime Cordial, and the Tambourine Girls. Please give a round of applause for Andrew. We have Regan Lethbridge. Regan wears two hats in the music industry as a manager and agent. He co-founded management company Lemon Tree Music in early 2013, where he guides the careers of Tash Sultana, the Pierce Brothers, Bonja, Anna O, Bad French, and Jack Sterling. Round of applause, please. We're joined by the very talented Ella Thompson, who is an energetic songwriter, a rich and powerful vocalist, who uses her talents to give listeners their own perception of self. You might know her from Dorsal Fins and GL and her own solo stuff. Thanks so much for being here, Ella. We're also joined by Edwin Tarani. After graduating from University of Sydney with a Masters in Digital Media, Edwin started his own booking agency and shortly after was headhunted by New World Artist Booking Agency. These days he's one of the most experienced and savvy music influencers in Australasia. Based in Sydney, he represents acts such as All Day, Barrow, Dead Letter Circus, Draft, In Heart's Wake, Illy, Luca Brasi, Rockwiz Live, Sneaky Sound System, Slumberjack, and Tina Arena. Round of applause, please. Also, total utter legend, stepping in at the last minute today with seriously about 5 minutes warning. Lorraine McKenna, head of marketing and promotions from Remote Control, works with the likes of Courtney Barnett, Dorsal Fins over here, King Giz and the Lizard Wizard, a whole lot more. Thank you so much for joining us at the last minute today.
That's okay. Hey everyone, welcome. I didn't know I was going to do this, so yeah.
Okay, so Ella, I'm going to start off talking to you as our resident artist. So what I want to know first off is, very early on in the baby days of your career, when you were just starting out, how did you kind of see success? Where did you want to be very early on?
Well, first of all, I wanted to have music lessons and be really, I guess, work on my craft. And I was always pestering my mum to, have piano lessons and singing lessons. But yeah, it's sort of like something that I always knew that I wanted to do. And yeah, I think that I just wanted to be good.
Be good?
and
Do you just want to play the piano well? Or?
I just wanted to sing like Celine Dion.
It's funny because right before you said Celine Dion, I was actually thinking someone like Celine Dion, My Heart Will Go On or something. I don't know, maybe it's like a 90s thing, but
yeah.
Right, okay. And I mean, what attracted you to that? Like just the artistic side? Like, was there any thought of a career at the early stages?
I guess when you're a kid, you don't really think about the nuts and bolts of it. You think, I want to be on stage and sing, for the rest of my life. And you don't think about, all, what that actually means or how you get there. But I just wanted to do it.
Right. And I'm assuming at some point then you kind of made a conscious decision to kind of make a little bit more of a career out of this. What started to go through your mind at that time?
Well, I went to Steiner School, and then I guess I wanted to take it a little bit more seriously, and so I auditioned for the VCA High School. And then from then on, it was kind of like I mean, they're great. They always teach you to do your academic subjects, but you do half the day music and half the day academic subjects. So it was like from like year 10 onwards, it was like, I'm working on my craft. This is what I want to do.
Did you ever have any of those moments where you're like, if I ever got to work with, like that particular artist, that my mind would just be blown?
Yeah, totally. Even like when I was, well, one of my first singing teachers was Renee Gayer, and she was she still is my absolute idol. And so, yeah, I got to have lessons with her when I was 15, and then she took me on tour when I was 16 around Australia. So that was like a bit of beginner's luck. But yeah, that was still one of the best things I've ever done.
Yeah, right. So I should just apologise on all our parts of our voices are cracking and quavering at any point. I'm sure you can all sympathise at the moment. Puberty happened a few years ago, but you could be thinking otherwise today. Okay, so I mean, growing up in Australia, like, I'm sure everyone here has a lot of opinions on this, but something I think that's really important to, like, I guess, the way talent develops in Australia is this idea of tall poppy syndrome. Do you think, like, the idea of, like, how people see you in Australia, like, in any way contributed to what you defined as successful,
Yeah, I think that, Australians can be quite self-deprecating, but, also when you go to LA and everyone's like, this is who I am, it gets really...
Was it a little bit of like a culture shock, like going from, Australia, where I guess, you're taught, like, don't big note yourself, to somewhere different where it's just the exact opposite?
Yeah, it is, and, people tell you just to, sell yourself more or whatever, but I kind of really like that about Australians, that, it's a fine line between selling, what you do and being proud and confident of what you do, and being a bit ego about it. But so I think Australians can kind of smell a rat a little bit in that way, they kind of can.
Do you think that's like right now, like a kind of a tall poppy approach, where, like, if you are talking yourself up and, like, here are my achievements, like, we're like, ooh, sounds like a little bit of a rat?
Well, I guess it's in the way that you say it, like, I'm proud of the work that I've done, or, you can just get a sense of someone trying to be, I don't know, engineering some sort of scene. But yeah, I guess, like, sometimes that self-deprecating thing is a little bit frustrating in a way too, because why can't we just celebrate? There's nothing wrong with just celebrating.
Just calling good shit what it is.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So what were some of, like, your early achievements? And, what did it feel like to start kicking some of those goals?
I guess, like, writing my first album was a big achievement,
And was your very first album as Ella Thompson, or was it with GL or Dorsal Fins?
like my first solo album, I guess. Like,
Right,
I've
yeah.
recorded with other people before, but to do something on my own, and I worked with John Castle and kind of brought him all these demos, and I wanted to show that I could produce something and not just be a singer, and so to kind of write a whole album, and John was really supportive in using my production and mixing it and that sort of thing. So that was, regardless of how many copies I'd sold, it was like, I've made this thing and it has my name on it.
So it's safe to say then, like, for you, you sit very much in the artistic achievement camp, and everything else is kind of secondary?
Well, it's also about survival, and like, music has always been my method of survival as well. So
When you say survival, what do you mean exactly by that?
Shelter.
Like, just, having a roof over your head, or kind of like more, I guess, from a mental standpoint?
Yeah, both really. But yeah, like, I remember when I moved out of home and I was 19 and I was playing in, like, cover bands or whatever I had to do, singing backing vocals, and I was like, oh my God, I can move out of home, and even if I don't like the music I'm singing, I own my own belongings, and I've never had another job, and I don't have rich parents. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, right. And do you think, like, as you've gone on, there's been an element of, like, you need to achieve more to feel like you're successful?
I think it's about being sustainable and kind of keeping that balance of, you know, keeping integrity to your work and, having it sustainable so you can keep making it. Because, you know, you could make some sort of noise soundtrack, but that might, you know, you could do that as well as doing an album that might be able to tour as.
Because at the end of the
keep
day,
it going.
like, if you want to record something, you can do that in your bedroom. You can feel good about it. But, you know, if you're looking for a career, then I guess, you know, you have to be, like, keeping some of those other, you know, shelter factors in the back of your mind, right?
Yeah, I think so. But, you know, there's lots of, like, music is so broad, the things you can do with it. You can, you know, I teach young kids or high school people, and that's such a cool thing to, like, be able to share music in that way. So there's lots of different ways.
Okay, so look, I mean, we've just heard a little bit now about, I guess, your early impressions of success and, you know, how you've gone looking at that. I want to open the discussion a little bit up now to Andrew, Edwin, Regan, and Lorraine. So I'm interested to get your take on it now. When you guys are looking to engage a new artist, what are you looking for, you know, in those very early days? You know, is it specific achievements? Is it like a rotation spot on Triple J or community radio? You know, is it a cool support slot, or is it just like a vibe you're picking up on, you know, as a music fan and instinct? What is it that you're looking for?
I guess there's like varying factors. Like you can't. There's not like a checklist you have to go through and go, oh well, they got this, they got that. Like certain things are better than others, but I think the best thing, like what to look for in an artist is like just their attitude. If without bringing it back to success, is like, do they want success? Are they going to work hard for it? If they're driven, then all the people around them will be driven, and that's probably one of the strongest ones. Obviously, the music has to be good too, but I think that's something we look for particularly, is just driven people, because you work harder for those people because they want it just as much as you want to get it for them.
I think for us, you're right about the croaky voice. I think for us, alignment is a big part of it. Like, if our goals are aligned with that of the artist. We've had situations in the past where we've really enjoyed the music, but the band's attitude or the artist's attitude has just been terrible. So we've had to end it after a couple of weeks because they don't reply to emails, or, you know, what I'm saying is we want our goals as a company. We have staff, we have bills to pay, we have things that we want to achieve as a company. And we want to do cool shit with our artists, and we want the artists to be able to make the best possible art they can and have a platform to succeed. But like Edwin was saying, like, that attitude is so important. And I think if, like, no one's going to work harder for a band's career than the band or the artist themselves. And so if they don't have that from the start, then that's not something that we get involved with.
Yeah, just touching on, like, work ethic's massive for me. Like, I love working with buskers. One of the reasons is they're out there 6 hours a day through the winter playing, honing their craft, and taking that to the world stages. It's really exciting, and obviously good people it's just key to the whole thing. You know, they want to communicate, they want to work their ass off for themselves. You know what I mean? So they want to take over the world. Otherwise.
I've got something to say.
Yeah, please.
I'm up to speed on this panel now. I really look for authenticity in artists. Like, that's one of the main things that I'm drawn to, is like artists who have a proper heart and are coming from an authentic place. They're the people that I want to work with. Like, most of the band, like, I just couldn't get behind something that wasn't authentic. That's one of the main things I look for.
Yeah, right. So I guess, like, if you had someone and they're an artist in the purest form, but maybe like they're a little bit hopeless, like, you're still going to be willing to want to take them on. And
100%. Like, I feel like it's not. I don't think hopeless is a very good word. I mean, artists are creatives and they all express themselves differently, and they all have their own different personalities and different ways of dealing with situations. So it's not like they're hopeless, they just need to be, molded in the right way. And actually, they're some of my most favourite people to work with. Like, I've actually just started working with Gabriella Cohen, and she is very fluid and very interesting personality, but some people call her difficult. I would just call her on a different plane. So, yeah, it's the way you look at an artist and how to deal with them.
Right, fair enough. Reagan, so you've done a lot of management, and I guess, as a manager, you have to spend a bit of time not only like working in the details of the here and now, but also like thinking forward into the future. How do you go about setting some of those like short term, mid-term, and long-term goals, and what factors into that?
Well, communication's obviously one of the biggest things that we work on. We always try and have a weekly chat, whether it's 10 minutes, like I know everyone's busy, but you can always have time for a 10-minute phone conversation with the bands and management and get the team in just so that everyone's on the same page, and just sit down and align your visions. So what the artist wants to do, I always say write down 10 goals for the next 12 months, 8 realistic ones, and then a couple of Hail Marys that can be literally anything. You name it, it can happen. And then it's our job as a management company to try and help them achieve those dreams and join the dots. And when you're doing all you're trying to be proactive and not reactive, and trying to get the name out, and just try and take them from A to B and keep it as real as possible. Like what you're saying about the socials, like fans pick up on that if it's not real. Like I don't touch Tasha's socials. If there's a spelling mistake, there's a spelling mistake. Like it's her relationship direct with her fans. So all those little things that are unique to each artist is crucial. Yeah.
How do you go about managing expectations then? Have you ever found yourself in a position where you've needed to downplay expectations, or conversely kind of like, raise the bar a little bit?
Yeah, all the time, and that's a day-to-day struggle, I guess. It's like, because when bands are young and they're a little bit naive and they want the world and they want it pretty quick, but realistically it can take 5 years to break an act or whatever it may be. So that's definitely a challenge for sure. But I mean, Pierce Brothers has been a slow build over 3 or 4 years, and Tash was the opposite. That just kind of blew up in kind of 6 months. So, but yeah, I personally struggle with that, like, and keeping them happy, and it's obviously a business relationship, but it's a personal relationship as well. You're emotionally invested because you genuinely care. So, yeah, it's tricky.
I think it's really interesting, like with the Pierce Brothers, because they're selling tens of thousands of album copies, just by busking. In some ways, like, they're doing better than a lot of other acts who are on majors. They're established. They have marketing teams. I guess, where do you go to from there? When I guess in some ways you're already kicking those goals.
But Pierce Brothers was, I mean, we're not on Triple J here. Like, Triple J don't support the band, but it's not bagging Triple J. They're incredible. But we were just like, right, well, they're not getting behind these songs, so who is? And it happened to be UK Europe, so now they spend 4 months of the year over there. So you'd go where there's a vibe, and that could be anywhere with the internet now. It could be Istanbul. It's just find out where there's a little fan base and go there and build it, and have smart strategy to come back, 3 to 6 months later, and always underplay. Everything's always sold out, and they've sold a lot of CDs, yes, so you've got that direct consumer relationship, but their Spotify stats are awful, so we're trying to work on that. So you can never win. I don't know.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier on, like sometimes you have artists who, are absolutely like killing the album sales, but nothing on Spotify streams, and vice versa. I mean, how do the artists react to that? I'm going to open that up to the rest as well. Like, if there's kind of that discrepancy, how do you manage that?
I think you kind of try and plug the holes. Like you run with what works. If Spotify's or SoundCloud or something really works for an artist, at the end of the day, you've got to try and bring in some revenue from somewhere to keep it all ticking along. But there are a lot of bands that make it, have a real fan base based on merch sales as well. People build a brand and get behind that in a certain way, and maybe a band works particularly well on radio or on digital downloads, and I think it's all go where the fire is, go where the heat is, and then we often find ourselves frantically trying to play catch up with the rest of the things. If something goes off, like you get a massive Spotify viral hit or something, or it goes really well on SoundCloud, or it becomes a big radio success, constantly try and fill everything else around it after the fact. It's more common than setting up a perfect plan that's executed perfectly. Sometimes it's just reacting after the fact, and that's okay.
Yeah, right. Laura, I'm going to direct this one to you, but then also just open up to the rest of the panel. Have there ever been times where you've overshot or like undershot your targets, where you've either just had your, hat completely blown off, or things have fallen short?
Well, I worked on Courtney Barnett, so I feel like I never knew that was going to be as big as it was when we signed her, so that it just kept going. There was like nothing that I've ever been a part of before, and I had a plan, but the plan just kept growing and growing and growing and growing along with, her success growing. So, I think I didn't undershoot it, but it was like definitely exceeded expectations and continues to exceed expectations.
I think it's it's amazing to see her do so well, but I think it's also probably exceeded everyone's expectations.
Yeah, well, it's just I feel very grateful to have been a part of it, and just, watching an artist like that and being there right from the start and doing, going through all the stages from when, having to pitch stuff out and to now where just everyone wants a piece, and it's like ebbs and flows for like a publicist, swings and roundabouts. You're always trying to get people to write about your artist, and then now we just can't say yes to every single opportunity that comes for her. So
I guess a part of that whole, in the case of Courtney, everyone's expectations is being blown away. A part of that is just how phenomenally well she's done. But why do you think it is that, I guess people's expectations were lower initially?
they weren't low.
Sorry,
it was just we didn't have a
comparatively.
low. Comparatively, it just I don't know. It's a very special project, and the expectations weren't low. They were just exceeded quick, fast. It just was a rapid, it caught fire and then it went. So. Yeah.
So where were they initially? What were you expecting in the early days?
Oh, well, we expected, you always hope for the best, and we actually got the best. So that's the thing. I feel like we, had a solid plan. I thought we would do all of these things, but then we got everything, which is rare and really amazing. So, I don't know how, else to explain. It's a very unique thing, Courtney. There's not really any other Australian artist to kind of model that off at the moment. It's a very unique situation to be involved in.
Rest of the panel, Edwin, from a touring perspective.
Look, it's I guess at every level it's something different. Like when you get like smaller acts and newer acts, it's like sometimes it's success to just get their friends to the show. Like that's a big deal. Oh my God, they came, or there's people here. The next level from that's like, oh, I actually don't know anyone in the crowd. This is awesome. It's like there's people coming, and then as you grow, like different bands want different things. Some acts, you kind of in their head, their success is at a certain level, whether that's overshot or undershot. Like sometimes they're like, oh, we can't do that. We're not that big yet. It's like, but I guess as an agent or a manager or a label, you kind of have that faith, and you kind of can see where it's going, and you like push them a little bit to go, and then when they get there, it's like, oh wow, like what do we do now? Whereas then other acts are like, yeah, let's do this. It's like, yeah, but you're not quite there yet. Like it's different people. I guess different acts look at it differently. Some thrive on like, oh, we got this cool support. We got to like, and then others like, I think every act kind of got their city-centric, country-centric. Like I think for a lot of acts, it's like if you get to play the corner and sell out the corner in Melbourne, that's like a big tick. Like, or you do like the Metro in Sydney, and then at a smaller level, oh my God, we sold out Good God or Oxford Art Factory or something like, or we're playing the Horde and supporting our favourite band. Like it's varies, and those expectations are never like some are like you can't gauge it. Sometimes they're just overshot bad, and sometimes they're spot on, and sometimes they're the total opposite.
I think it's fair to say that, you know, live shows can be a really great indicator of audience enthusiasm. And, you know, you've just spoken about how, you know, like playing at the corner hotel or something, you know, selling that out is like a massive tick in the early days for artists. What do you think about, I guess, like continued growth for an artist? You know, does there need to be, like, I guess, do they need to be leveling up to bigger venues all the time, or is it okay just to plateau?
Well, I think everyone's always thriving to get bigger, but I guess the Australian market, to a certain extent, is what it is. Like you're going to hit a point, and then what do you do? How do we differ that? A lot of artists like will, I don't know. Like I guess in terms of sometimes an example is like an act like All Day. Like we put him like his first show in Sydney. Like put him at the Brighton Up Bar, and there was like 20 people there. Like. And it was like, you had the faith in him, and then the next time round, 6 months later, we came, like, he sold out, like, the Metro Lair, the small room in the Lair, and the demand was so hot that we then moved to the bigger room, and then the Roundhouse, and now he's doing the Enmore, like, it's
And
just...
what happened between that first show, you know, where he pulled that tiny crowd, and the next one?
Well, I guess that was kind of also based on, like, just his attitude. He's like, I'm going to get bigger, like, he wanted to, like he's obviously got a big social reach. He interacts with his fans. Like no matter how many people line up, he'll sit there and take a photo with every single person. And
so it almost comes back a little bit to that work ethic.
Yeah, the work ethic. Like and a lot of that, like that first level of achievement. Like I think by the time he got to Metro, was on very little. Like I don't think he had ever got an ad on Triple J at that point or anything. He had the support, but then. All those factors add in, and the goals change, and it's like, okay, well, what do we do next? Like, where do we go from there? Like, for him now, like as an example, like Australian market's growing, it's going good, but he's like, okay, well, I'm getting successful here to a certain point. I'm going to keep working on that, but what else can I do? Like he's focusing on the US and all that. That's not something we're involved in necessarily, but. Like that, for some bands, like it's like, oh, let's get big in Australia so we can leave Australia and do it elsewhere. But eventually, they all come back. Like, and this is like, like I think like varying bands. Some bands are just happy to like tour Australia like for the rest of their lives, be around for as long as they can play, as long as people keep coming, and then others want more and more. And like,
do you work with any bands like who are just kind of happy to do that? You know, like just pull a.
Yeah, look, we book British India. They go to Europe. They do all that as well. But they're happy if they're playing a gig every not every weekend, but almost every weekend. They just love playing. They love that. Their idea of success is that hey, we don't have to work a 9-to-5 job. We write music. We get to play. We get to see the country multiple times, and keep writing. Like that's a band who's like not. Oh, we have to, they don't have to be an entertainment center level band. They're happy to keep growing, but like okay, well we're successful in Sydney. We're like, what's this place like? Oh, like Dubbo. Let's go there. Like that to them, it's exciting to build up audiences everywhere. Like and that could be a completely different ethic to someone else on our roster.
So as a booking agent, then you're not particularly concerned if a band like isn't kind of, you know, reaching larger and larger crowds, you know?
Well, I guess as a business, as an agency, you want them to get bigger, and you kind of go, well, what's wrong? Why isn't it happening? But there's always many factors. Like, but you got to be like, you got to manage those expectations and the level of success that people want. Some acts are like, why aren't we on Splendor? Why aren't we on Falls? Or why like that? Their idea of success is to be like, if we're on the festival circuit, we're massive. Like that's it. Like whereas other acts get the kick out of being on their own headline shows. I think like as acts get bigger and bigger, like that mentality flips again. It's like, oh well, we can headline our own River Stage show, or we can do our own big show. We can put on our own concert, and there's goalposts like continually change, like from a, I guess, management and label perspective for you guys as well. It's always, it's never like this is the list and once you're done, you're done. It's this is the list up until this point. What do we do next?
How do you, I guess, compare the opportunities for growth versus sustainability. So, you know, like if a band's offered an amazing support and there's room for growth, they're going to lose a lot of money. Like, is it better to jump on that and lose the money, or you know, should you like start small and just run a sustainable tour where you're going to be in the black or even make a little bit of money out of it?
Well, I guess that varies down to if you see that opportunity being great in the long run. Like, it might not have a necessarily short-term benefit financially, but will that make you, by supporting X band at Brisbane Convention Centre, will that help you sell out your show at the Triffid? Sorry, I had a train of thought on it.
I mean, do you think it's worth going into the red a little bit maybe in order to try and get back into the black?
Well, I guess we don't encourage it, and we try and offset that to not happen. And at the same time, with a lot of our acts, like there's a whole there's different ways to make money. You can do the out there like public gigs where it's the perception, it looks good, it's the successful place to do. Maybe not the most well-paying things to do, but behind the scenes, while everyone's like, you're not in the spotlight, you could go and I guess go for shelter and do all these like. In some degrees, for some acts, they could be the soul-destroying gigs or whatever if they want to do it, like go to these places where people almost don't really care, but you get the money, you get paid, and it's finding that balance of where, what are you aiming for? Is success money, or is success fame, or that perfect balance, I guess?
And just be old school and just like, if you're starting out, like write a list, literally pros, cons, pros outweigh the cons, do the gig. You're going to get, I found anyway, when you're starting it, you're going to get 8 or 9 no's, you get 1 yes, and if there's an opportunity to do that, and then something else, another promoter will see you, and it's the domino effect. So if you do get a break at the start, and you are going to financially lose out a little bit, just stand longer at the merch desk, or I don't know, get your mate to, there's so many ways you can cut costs and find. If it's the right fit, you should always just. I mean, I'm obviously not a business advisor, but it's like.
Good. That kind of tree of thought, like we look after Sneaky Sound System, who were like publicly like massive, like quite a few years ago, and like they were the biggest like dance like pop act in the country, and now like they've remained relevant and going there, but their idea of, I guess, success now is like they're living off those like behind the scenes shows that no one needs to really, like, the public doesn't need to know about those kind of shows. However, their attitude now has changed to, okay, well, we've done the hits, we've done that. They've gone back to their roots and going, okay, well, we want to do, like, we don't want to play our hits. We want to do like our sneaky Sunday sessions. We want to throw our parties on Sundays where we'll play for 8 hours, get certain people come. They've come to like this peak in their career where they've gone, okay, well, let's go back to the beginning and start something new and do it differently. Like, whereas a lot of people, they might hit their peak and go, okay, well, we've done our dash, we're done, like, which is, yeah, like a bit different to most, I guess.
Ella, how do you see that, as an artist, like, I guess, you were talking earlier on about how, I guess, you like, for you, the idea of, like, making your own album or, like, working with your music teacher, it was, like, a really cool thing. And I imagine, the possibility of touring with, say, an artist you admire was particularly appealing. How do you rate the idea of, jumping on that tour where you might lose some money, or being, I'm going to play a little bit more safe and, just try and stay in the black?
Yeah, we've definitely done a few of those. But then, there's great things like, we did a Chet Faker support tour, and then like, 6 months later, look at all this opera. Like, there's other ways of...
So, like, you do, like, see, I mean, obviously, Chet Faker, isn't your everyday sort of artist, but, I mean, you saw, like, the benefits of doing something like that?
I mean, when you, at the time, you might go into the red or whatever, but it works out financially later on. But yeah, totally, like, we played our first headline show in Adelaide on Saturday night, and there were people there who were like, we've been following your music since you supported Chet Faker, which was like 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. So yeah, it's great, like, that those people stick around.
Yeah, and one thing I was just kind of picking up before, and as we're like been talking, is kind of the idea that like some of these goals like shift over time. You know, you're talking about sneaky sound system. You know, their goals and what they're aiming for earlier on change as they develop. Like, do you feel like age plays a factor for you? Like, you know, as you get older, like, you know, I guess what you want out of music changes.
Totally. Well, you know, I'm only 26, but I feel like I've been, you know, doing it for 10 years, and it's yeah, there is this sort of, especially because Australia has a real obsession with young, you know, acts, and you know, you look around and there's a couple of females over 35 that are awesome, but that's kind of like a really hard thing to kind of see, you know. There's awesome people, but very few in the later part of their careers that are celebrated as new artists. And you look overseas, someone like Tina Arena is celebrated as a older person in Europe. So yeah, I mean, that's something that you do kind of put in perspective when you get older, but you also can't, like, vocally, you know, your voice only matures when you're 25, 26, and creatively, when you're 30, you're probably writing your best music, or not your best music, but you're starting to write your best music. So I look forward to knowing myself more and knowing, you know, becoming a better writer and performer, because you probably will with age.
Andrew, is that something you've seen? Like, you know, as you work with artists over the years, do you feel like their goals are changing as they get older?
Yeah, look, I think Australians are fairly suspicious of success, and we talked about it before. And I think everyone's in a bit of a danger of just shooting for mediocrity as well. Like, we're a small pond. You know, we talk about what it means to be successful. As far as I'm concerned, like, most people's goals when they start out is to be able to do art and do music and do it sustainably for the rest of their lives. Sure, you can get a job teaching or do whatever on the side, but there are so many opportunities now for artists to follow in the footsteps of a band, or an artist like Courtney or Flume or Pierce Brothers or anyone like that, that have like gone out there and done it, and they've built markets in different places that no one's ever been to before. So I think you got to bite off more than you can chew, and you got to chew like crazy, until, you know, it kind of like starts to make sense for you. Like, take risks, but take measured risks. Like, not everyone can get offered the Chet Faker support, which is an amazing opportunity, but you know, people have to be creative. And I think when we talk about the market for older musicians and the fact that we're such a bipolar, like, two-speed music industry with community radio on one side and Triple J on one side and commercial radio all the way over here, 80% of people listen to commercial radio all the way over here. And there's this massive gulf in between where if you want to sound like Coldplay and you want to be in a band that wants to sound like Coldplay, you're fucked, because there's no pathway for that artist here in Australia, and there hasn't been for a while, because commercial radio just don't give a shit about you in that sense. So what you got to do is you got to try and get creative with this and find other opportunities. Say, like, you guys go to the UK and the Netherlands, and you find radio pluggers over there. You come to Big Sound, you meet people who are from different parts of the world, and you can ask their stories and ask those questions. But, you know, you see people chucking rocks around going, you know what, I'm just happy to chill beans and be poor and never get the opportunity to really make the art that you truly want to make. The thing is, there's enough money in the world to pay for those cool opportunities and to really encourage great artists to keep doing good stuff. And I think as Australians, and especially Queenslanders and from Brisbane, there are so many opportunities that we're just not taking, because we're not helping each other to get there. So, sorry, long-winded way to answer your question. Yes, goals shift, but the goals have to be so far ahead of where you think you want to go, and then reverse engineer the steps along the way by asking questions of people like Courtney's team or someone who's been there and done it before.
So you mentioned like golf before, you know, where like 80% of audiences over here, another 20% over here, and there's just like this huge like gap in the middle where no one seems to be. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this as well, Lorraine. Like, why does that gulf exist? Like, how did it get to be like that?
It's the size of our market. Like, we've only got 20 million, 25 million people now. There's only X amount of FM bands on the spectrum. Triple J's and community radio's MO is to discover new music. Commercial radio's MO is to sell ads and retain listenership, and they're unashamedly out there to do that. That's fine. We have to compete with. You've got to make art that's popular enough to compete on that same stage. We can bitch and moan and complain about commercial radio not picking up new artists, but ultimately we need to find more creative ways as managers and labels and teams around it to build the audience. It's out there, it's waiting. Go busk in the street, or go put on your own show, or start your own festival, or go sell some merch, or, you know, tell that story. With Shepherd, for example, no one wanted to know what the hell was going on with that here. I put that CD on every single major record label's desk, and every single one of them passed on it. So we went, okay, how are we going to regroup and try this again? And we paid for very small level radio servicing over in the US, and one station over there got behind the song. It became the most requested song for 4 weeks straight, and then we told that story back into Australia, and it's been the first Australian act to break independently on commercial radio in about a decade. I can't think of another one. But that was just a way of thinking, you know, if it's not working here, then let's keep going. We're going to back ourselves and do some cool stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree. Working with Courtney and also King Gizzard, it's been this really strange thing. Like, Australia's a strange place. Something has to be acknowledged overseas before we can truly accept it here as our own, which has happened with Courtney. It also happened with King Gizzard. Like, they went to America, like, they were both hardworking bands that were doing things here at a lower level, but until they went to the States and things started blowing up over there, only then did that really, like, splash back here. Like, Courtney released 2 EPs, the same 2 EPs here. They came out independently on Milk. They were out for 2 years. It wasn't until she got signed to Mum and Pop, and then we signed her to Remote Control at the same time, repackaged them, the same songs, re-released in America. Boom.
Well, the Passenger story is fascinating in so much that Let It Go was track 9 on the album, and they were about to re-record another one, and then a radio plugger from Holland picked it up and said, you know what, I want to release this in Holland. And they're like, oh yeah, you want the single? No, I want track 9. I think that's going to work here. And then 4 weeks later, he's playing to 50,000 people as a fill-in at a festival. It's number one in the UK, and then it goes number 1 or thereabouts in the States and everywhere else in the world. I mean, sometimes there are opportunities out there and there are audiences out there, and you don't have to compromise and, you know, take all the vowels out of your band name and make it all capitals. So if you want to do cool commercial sounding alternative music, there are markets out there that really like that kind of stuff. And so many bands are just like, oh, do I have to change it? Do I have to, you know, work with X producer or Y producer? We got a band, the Griswolds, who are selling out 1,000, 1,500 cap venues in every state in America, and barely anyone knows that. Like, they got some airplay on Triple J, it's kind of going well, but you know what? Their market is the States, and they played 300 shows in the US, and they worked their ass off. And you know, we managed to convince a US record label to invest a bit of money, and not a whole bunch of money, but that's the kind of stuff that can actually make careers, and they have a sustainable career. And they haven't had to compromise their sound as a result of it. They haven't had to try and become more cool than what they actually are.
Just putting this to the panel more broadly, why is it that we're just not willing to accept stuff? Why do we need the US to kind of jump on it first before we're like willing to recognize, like, you know, like how great something is?
I don't know. Someone could find the answer for that, because it just baffles me. I do not know why we can't nurture and promote things ourselves here. Like, I don't know why there's this incessant need for, like, I don't know if it's because, you know, it's like the homeland in the UK or something, going back to being like invasions of something, like needing the Queen to do something. I don't know, it's something bad. I don't know, it's just, yeah, I wish so much for Australia to just get behind something without needing to fall back on America or the UK. Oh, why can't we just do that here? I don't know. Answers. Someone out there has an answer.
And if you do go over and make your own luck, and you, as Stoney said, basically just give it a crack. Make sure that when you do get back and you get runs on the board over there, you tell the right people about it, whether it's a personal note to, if Triple J is the aim, maybe to the music team, or leak it out through Tone Deaf, you know, like strategically try and get your note out there without coming across too strong, and send a press release at the right time. Like, obviously don't bombard people with information, but if you get a couple of wins, if you sell out a great venue, or if you do a support or something, you need to tell certain people in the industry here to, you know, like, that's crucial, and that's something that we did do with PS Brothers, is just drip feed information, because it's crazy. You have to go overseas now. It's
I think as well that there are opportunities here. You just got to get creative with the way you build that audience. Because if the music's good enough and the band's good enough and the songs are good enough, they stick around, and it shows at live shows especially. It just starts to build. I'm sure it was the case with All Days. Like, this isn't getting radio play, but why are more and more people coming to these shows? And there's more opportunity than ever before to actually put that music in the hands of people. So sticky songs and sticky bands stick around. And
You got the one-liners today.
If there's one takeaway, guys, sticky songs stick around.
sticky fingers.
I mean, Ella, is that something that you found, like, Australian audiences, you know, not difficult, but, you know, like, they're cautious in jumping on board with something?
Yeah, it's funny because, you know, I've always been influenced by music from overseas as well. Like, you know, I think a lot of, like soul music and funk and all of that is American. And, I mean, it is really kind of strange that you know, you're not totally supported by where you come from. But, it's definitely something that I would like to explore further, is working overseas. It's really hard to kind of get that first step of, like, getting the cash together and all that shit, you know. That's the hardest thing, is that first venture.
I think one other thing is, you know, I always hear talk about appealing to supporting Aussie music and supporting Australian artists and all that kind of stuff, but as we're talking about commercial radio, they just don't care. If your music doesn't sound as good, or isn't as well produced, or isn't as well put together as the Taylor Swift song they're trying to promote, then it's not going to get up. We've got the producers, we've got the artists, we've got the musicians and the singers to compete on a talent point of view with anyone in the world, and we've shown that time and time again. But I think the responsibility does have to come back to the artists to make truly world-class art, because then you can truly compete with those artists on that world stage. And I think we do have a bit of an opportunity in so much as we become this, like, gestation pot, because the only way you can afford to get out of Australia is to be at that stage where you're selling out metros and you're selling out corners. And we're actually fortunate to have 10 years or 5 years of a career to develop and actually become good and hone our craft, because the people who aren't good and haven't honed their craft fall by the wayside and they go and do something else. So we've got that opportunity to develop, to grow, and by the time you make it to BIGSOUND or you make it to South by Southwest, you've actually maybe released 2 or 3 albums, and that's a huge advantage. Just don't sell your soul before you get a chance to kind of give it a real crack.
yeah,
That comes later in the
and
piece,
be real, and don't try and be perfect. Just be you. And everyone's trying for radio. Like, everyone's got phones in their pockets right now. Facebook is huge. Like, Tash just set up a GoPro and played songs, and one of them got 25,000 shares in a week. My point is, you can reach millions of people by coming up with innovative, unique ways to get your music out there. Don't try and be this perfect.
But that's fantastic. Like, Tash is world class, because what she's doing is really cool. And if you make really cool stuff, then people are going to hear about it. Sure, you have to figure out the right people to send it to, or maybe cool marketing strategies to get things out. But I think there's so much responsibility that has to come back on the artist to, like, you know what, you want to get on radio, you want to be famous, then fucking do some cool shit.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, there's so many artists that are amazing from Australia that are just, no one knows about them overseas, and there's some really cool shit. I reckon a lot of the stuff that is exported is, you know, pretty middle of the road.
I completely agree with you, but we need also the support infrastructure with managers and labels who are inventive,
Yeah.
who've gone and forged those paths previously.
Yeah, so that's
to-
not really the artist's responsibility, you know, to a
But
certain
they have to make the
extent.
cool art in the first place.
Yeah, but they can also do that and not have the network. So.
Yeah, and there's plenty of artists making cool art that lie underground for so long. Like I work with, you know, there's amazing bands in Melbourne that I see week after week, which are world class, and like Melbourne has an incredible music scene, and there's just stuff there that just, you know, there's so much great stuff in Melbourne, and it just, you know, I think it's like a little bit, yeah, you can't just say you can, you know, I understand what you're trying to say, but like, just create cool shit is kind of like a bit blasé. Like there's heaps of people creating cool shit, but it's a way of like getting that cool shit out there.
Yeah, it's
because,
all
like,
part of the same narrative. Like
Yeah.
you have, it's not just about maybe making the best CD you can. You know, find a way to tell people about it. The issue is that there aren't enough managers who have experience in doing that to kind of maybe help that artist out if they're not particularly well versed in the marketing side of things or in the international export side of things, and that's why you come to places like this. But I think gone are the days where you're relying on someone else to just come and discover you and pluck you out of obscurity and go, you know what, this is amazing, this is going to work, because no one's going to do that for you.
It does happen though. I
Yeah.
feel like I've, you know, I found bands that you can, you know, I've found really small bands like Methyl Ethyl
Yeah.
when they had like 100 Facebook likes and plucked them out of obscurity out of Perth and now got them signed to 4AD. So it can actually
And I
happen.
think it's fantastic, but we need more people like you who are well versed in so much to be able to navigate that system and actually pluck them out. I just think
There's
there's
some great people working in the music industry though. I feel like it's, yeah, but anyway.
And
That's
you
a
know,
fight.
it's always like, what about those
I agree with you.
introverted? Like, I've got so many amazing friends that have like the best voices I've ever heard, and are too shy to kind of get it out there. And you know, that's a real shame. Like, do you want to discover Arthur Russell in 30 years' time? I don't know.
Well, I guess like where we're kind of veering the conversation onto now is like slightly more rocky terrain. You know, it's like I was saying at the beginning, like how when you're looking at this purely in artistic terms, like it becomes a much more difficult thing to measure, and it's very subjective. You know, if you love something and you're confused as to why it's not doing well, you know, like what is cool shit for one person, you know, isn't really of interest to someone else. So I think there's like definitely valid points to be made here. But, you know, I think it is rocky terrain, you know, just because it is, you know, quite subjective. Anyway, look, we've got 5 minutes left. Maybe we'll just open it up to some questions. Is there anyone, you know, something to ask? It's a little bit hard to see, but I can't see any hands up. Nope.
There's one over there.
Is there?
Hi, Chris Carey over from London, also got a croaky voice, hopefully it'll work. Sorry about the whole Queen thing, we'll work on that. With all the conversations about the importance of international touring, importance of international success, bring that back here, how does that fit in the context of Sounds Australia and all that's going on there? And is there kind of arguments being made that in a context where you haven't got a domestic route to break bands yourselves, that's actually even more important than I cottoned on before I sat here for the last 25 minutes? And I think the question fundamentally is, what can you do to further stimulate that route, if that is the route? Because we're saying there's no domestic market for radio, middle ground is missing.
Yeah.
What can you do to further that international route, rather than trying to change the culture that seems to be unaccepting of domestic talent from the word go?
Just on Sounds Australia, like I think what they do particularly well is give artists and their support teams, instead of giving them a whole bunch of fish, they give them the fishing rods and build them the networks for them, or assist in the building of the networks and provide those opportunities, so that then you can build sustainable careers in the arts around that. I think that's one of the key parts of all this it's fine to have export opportunities, but you kind of have to then go and build and understand what it is like and build those international contacts. I don't want to wholly answer the question if anyone else wants to jump in.
Anyone else want to jump in there? No?
Not
Very
really.
good. Anyone else? No? Okay then. Well, please round of applause for our panelists today. And thank you so much for coming, everyone else. Cheers.